We're not done. We still have some work to do on the Princeton Reverb that we're building, and today we're going to continue the next video in the series. Hey, welcome back guys. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Addicted to Gear. As you can see, the chassis is still not in the box. It's empty for the time being because we're still not finished putting all of the components in the chassis, and we're getting ever so close. And with every video that we produce here on Addicted to Gear, we're getting one step closer to finalizing this Princeton Reverb build. I'm really excited, and I really want to thank you guys for staying and watching all of the videos in the series. Today's video is video number 5, if my math is correct, and we're basically populating the turret board. We're gonna get to about midway through the turret board in today's video, so I hope you guys do like this type of thing. I'm putting a lot of time and effort trying to document all the steps along the way. Now, some of you have asked me questions along the way, so I do want to take a couple of minutes just to answer some of those questions before we jump into today's build. And some of the common questions are, why are you building your own amp when you can go out and buy one? Well, first of all, you have a couple of things that you don't normally get with this kit when you buy one off the shelf. First of all, it is hand wired as opposed to being a populated, mass-produced circuit board. There is a difference there. I'm not saying one is better than the other in terms of quality. They're both very good, but a lot of people do like the older hand-wired versions more. They just tend to like them because they're more collectible, they're a little bit more rare, and for those reasons it's always pretty cool, and it does give you a certain amount of mojo when you can actually open up and see everything that is in the chassis that is hand wired like that. Some people have asked me, why are you bothering building a kit which is relatively expensive when you can go out and buy one already pre-built? That is true. You can actually go out and buy yourself a brand new Princeton Reverb with a standard circuit board for almost the same money as I'm spending on this kit. But if you're looking at the hand-wired version that is offered by Fender, that is way more expensive, probably 3 times more expensive, maybe even more depending on where you're buying it from. I do feel that putting the amp together myself actually makes me learn a lot about how the amp works, and ultimately if something should fail, I will probably know at least where to look, and I would probably be able to fix it since I put it together in the first place. And of course there is something to say in terms of being able to actually play something that you put together with your own hands. There's a sense of accomplishment there that you will never get with an item purchased from a store. Whenever you put a guitar together on your own, custom build your very own amplifier and actually get it to work, when it actually turns on and sounds nice, that definitely gives you a sense of accomplishment that you can't get any other way. So if you're considering building an amp kit like this to save money, that's probably not a valid reason to do so. At the end of the day, you can go out and buy a ready-built amplifier with a warranty that works right out of the store, and you won't have any issues. You can definitely have issues when you build your own. It's not always a cut and dry experience. You don't always go straight from point A to point B without any hiccups. So you have to be ready to deal with all of that. Now, if you're a little bit adventurous, you can definitely customize your amp builds, which adds another element to these kits. If you're experienced enough to be able to tackle any kind of mods yourself, then it gives you a good starting point to be able to put those in place as well, which is pretty cool. So without further ado, let's jump in today's video and get started. We got a lot of work to do. The next 2 components we're going to install are a set of 100K resistors. So we have those here. And the first one we're going to install between eyelets 38 and 64 right here. And the other resistor, which is the same value, we're going to install between eyelets 38 and 62. So 38, 64, 38, 62 right there. And let's just put those in place before we jump to the next step here. When you're done, you should have something that looks like this. And next we're going to install a 0.02 UF orange drop cap between eyelets 37 and 62. This is a 600 volt cap, and there is no polarization here, so you don't have to concern yourself about that. So that's going to go between eyelets 37 right there and 62. Now the legs on these are pretty long. I already cut them halfway. I don't know why they're so extremely long, but you know, you can trim them later on before you solder the entire board, just to keep things manageable on the back end. So let's put that in 3762 right here. It's kind of like playing bingo, right? 3762. Just make sure you're hitting all the right holes, because it's easy to make a silly mistake. If there's something on the back side already, like here there's a wire, you want to make sure you're not popping out that wire by accident, which could happen. If you need to make the legs shorter, then just do that. And that should do it. I like to check the back side. You can see how messy it's getting with all of the little legs. But once we start soldering everything, then we can clip these nice and short and clean everything up and keep everything nice and neat as we go along. Also make sure these wires don't fall out and get lost along the way, because it's easy for one of these to pop out. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go back and check all of them once again when it gets to the soldering stage, just to make sure I didn't lose one along the way. It's easy to do. So step 66 calls for 2 white jumpers. One is 3 inches long and goes into eyelet 64, which I already put in right here. And the next one is a 4.5 inch jumper, white, just a little longer, and that's going into eyelet 62, which is right there. So let's just pop that one in. I like to pre-bend these wires 90 degrees, just so I have something to grab on the other side with my fingers. Sometimes you need to use the pliers. For step 67, we're going to wrap a 1.5K resistor around a 25 UF capacitor, and we're going to solder them together like we did for the others. I like to leave the wires, the legs off of the resistor a little long, so that it doesn't heat up as much when we heat up the ends here, just so it's not right up against the capacitor. Just for heat distribution, I think it's a better way of doing it. So we're going to wrap these around, solder that, and we're going to put that between the holes number 12 and 61. 12 is here, 61 is there. So it's got to be rather long, this one here. Okay, we're going to try and solder these up now. Make sure your soldering iron is tinned and ready to go, nice and hot. And we don't want to spend too much time on the components, just to make sure we don't burn anything. As little time as possible. That should do it. And that's part of the reason why I keep these things separate, just for heat dissipation. Whenever I'm soldering anything, I just feel it's better. Keep all the soldering points a little bit further away from the components so they don't heat up. So I've put the components in place between eyelets 12 and 61. The important thing to remember here is that the capacitor is indeed polarized, and the fluted edge should be facing downwards towards eyelet 61. Essentially, all of these capacitors will all be facing the same direction in terms of polarity. So that's an easy way to keep track and making sure you didn't flip one the wrong way around. So once it's in place, bend the legs, and we're off to the races, and we can start step 68. Next, we have a 2.7K resistor, and we're going to put this between eyelets 12 and 26. 12 is there, 26 is right there. It doesn't really matter which direction. We'll follow the diagram, put it in like this. I'll bend the legs and slip that in. So that one is in. Next, we're going to take the 47 ohm resistor, and we're going to place that between eyelet 11 and 12 on the board. And again, just place it in the same way, bend the legs, and making sure you have a good connection on the other side by bending the legs in place so nothing falls out. And the board is starting to get pretty populated. I'm getting encouraged here. We're more than halfway. Well, no, I think we're about halfway through, but the rest of it's going pretty smoothly. So onward and upwards. This brings us to step 69, which is 3 steps, and we're basically putting 3 new jumpers on the board. The first one is a 2-inch jumper, which is just going to be inserted into eyelet number 61 right there. Then we have a 7-inch long jumper, this very long one here, which is going to be put through eyelet number 26, which is right here. It goes through the bottom of the board and you have to stuff it through this hole, number 48. So it's tightly in place. And the underside looks something like this, right there. And then finally, we have one more jumper, which is this one here. It's a 5-inch white jumper. And this is going to go into eyelet 27 through the back of the board. And then you just put that through, push it through hole number 49, just like we did for the other one. So it comes out right there. And that's really all we need to do for step 69. So the final step we're going to tackle on page 25 of the StewMac build guide is these 2 components that we have to put together. And basically what we're doing is we're putting together 2 more resistor cap pairings as per step 70 in the instructions. So we're wrapping the leads of a 3.3 resistor and a 1.5K resistor around the leads of the 225 UF electrolytical capacitors. So I've already done that. Now we just have to solder them all up, and then we're going to install those onto the board. And once again, you have to remember there is a polarity here. So the fluted edge at the bottom should be pointing downwards here. And we're going to install these between eyelets 11 and 60. So if we look at our board here, 11 is there and 60 is there. And then we're going to install the second one in eyelet 59 right there and 11. So basically we're creating a triangular configuration here, 60, 11, 59, 11. And again, taking note of the polarity. So let me just solder them up so I can put them in place. So here we have the finished configuration. We can see how they are all installed between hole 11, 60, 11, and 59. So we have the positives facing downwards towards the larger numbers away from 11, and that is the right configuration. So if you have the polarity correct and you have the right configuration here with the 3.3 on one side and 1.5 on the other, you should be good to go. So just remember the 3.3 is between hole 1159, and the 1.5 is between hole 11 and 60. If you have those in the right configuration, you should be golden. So that is the last step that we need to tackle on page 25 of the manual. So I think we did a lot of great work today. We populated, I would say, a little bit more than half of the board. So we're almost getting to the end of populating this board, and I can't wait to get to the soldering portion. That's where the fun happens. So we're gonna take a little break. We're going to look over our work, make sure we didn't make any silly mistakes along the way. Once again, if you spot any silly mistakes, please let me know so I can correct them and not make this app explode when I turn it on for the first time. But if you're enjoying what we're doing here, stay tuned for the next series, because we're going to finish this up and then put this into the chassis and start all the fun soldering work that needs to be done. We're getting there. So once again, guys, thank you for diligently watching this build series on the Princeton Reverb. This has been video number 5. We're definitely building a community here, and I do feel that sense of community with all of your comments and words of support. It definitely goes a long way to encouraging me to continue to work on this build, get it done quickly so that we can actually plug it in and hear it and strum a few chords on it, which is going to happen very soon, I promise. I'm going to get straight back to work and continue more videos on this build for you. So if you like the content we're putting together here and you enjoy this kind of techie, geeky amp build videos, then you definitely know what to do. Please subscribe to the channel. Your subscriptions definitely go a long way and encourage us to continue putting out great content. So that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. More to come right here on Addicted to Gear.